There is a lot of ways to die in Lethal Company, but today we're going to find out the worst, whether it's an embarrassing death that's easily avoidable or a landmine that takes out half the crew. Today we find out the worst. Let's do it. First up, and you guessed it, is dying to the shotgun.
Hey, how the fuck you get a shotgun? That's what I'm saying. Oh! What the heck?
Dying to the shotgun is one of the funniest things in this game. Honestly, it's somewhat of an achievement because someone's willing to waste a few bullets on you. The shotgun, when they added this to the game, it was the best thing ever. Although it does suck that you're dying, typically it's a funny moment and you probably did it to them the round before. So I think it's fair. So going into A tier is the shotgun. Next up, and going into B tier, is the shovel. Now, this depends if it was a random killing or somewhat of a duel. Now, if it was a random killing, you're in the company, two of your teammates run up to you with a shovel and a stop sign, and they jump you. That sucks. Bad way to go. D tier. However, if it's a duel and you lost, it's an instant E tier moment. You just got Obi-Wan'd. It sucks. Next up is the turret. Now, I was really contemplating where to put this because on one sense, it's kind of funny. You're getting shot. You hear this like loud gunshots. It's kind of funny. But on the flip side, sometimes it feels a bit finicky. Sometimes it feels like you got spotted and then you didn't. So it's going in the C tier. If you hate dying to this, it means you can't check corners and you must have never played CSGO. And sometimes it feels like you were behind cover, but you weren't. Sometimes annoying, but sometimes creates a funny moment, especially if you hear it through the walls and someone else is getting shot. The first thing going in S+ is the landmine. Now, you might be thinking, the landmine? That's a terrible way to go. You're telling me and my friends can be walking down a corridor and I can run over something and it will blow up half the corridor and killing half my team with me. It can create such a funny moment, maybe the first time, maybe the second time. Maybe it could rank a little low, but in my opinion, I think it creates some of the funniest moments. Maybe my friends make it funny, but I think a well-timed landmine can be the funniest thing in the game. S+ tier. And if you accidentally do run over it, that's funny in itself because why weren't you checking? It literally has a noise making sounds. So even if you don't have flashlight, you can still see it. So I think it creates a funny way either way. Next up, and going into C tier, is gravity. Who doesn't like dying to gravity? Honestly, it creates a funny moment at the start of the moon. However, exactly that, the start of the moon. You have to wait the entire moon run just to respawn. Now, people that enjoy dying this way, and they do it consistently, are probably playing another game. Let's be honest, they got two monitors, they got a game on the second screen, or they're watching TikToks or something like that. It does make things funny at the start of the moon, and it can get the funny stuff going. However, you have to wait ages, so that's why it goes in C tier. Another way to die that's going in C tier is the Bracken. Now, you might be thinking, Will, that should be ranked higher or lower in the sense of it being worse to die to. But in my opinion, it is creepy, but it's not the creepiest. And it can be avoided if you are paying attention. Sometimes it does feel unfair, but let's be honest, if you do look away, you're the last one alive, sometimes it does just come and grab you, which sucks. But the reason why I rank it here is because of the Goku mod. If you use the Goku mod, this is the funniest thing to die to, which is why I go C tier, because some of you don't, some of you do. Next up, and going into B tier, is getting crushed by the ladder. Now, the reason why you died is probably because you weren't paying attention and your friends are used to doing this stuff to you. Now, it depends if this was intentional or just happened. I've only seen a few times where it's happened just like unintentionally and it's just fallen on someone. But most of the time, it's people trying to troll each other at the start of the round or something similar. Now, if that happens, it sucks. It goes low because you've just been killed. However, it happens unintentionally. It is one of the funniest moments because you've randomly just got killed by a ladder, which I think is hilarious. So it's going in B tier because it can fluctuate quite heavily. Now, another one going into S+ tier, which is the mask. Dying to the mask is a choice. If you put on the mask, it's a choice. So that in itself makes this pretty good, because if you don't want to die to it, you don't have to. It's completely a choice. But it is the best way to die, because you can single-handedly ruin the run for everyone else on the moon, depending on where you put it on. Now, I know what you're saying, Will, why would you even say that? That's terrible. You know, we're ruining the run for everyone else. But that can be funny. Let's be honest, that can be funny. If you're putting it on deep in the building after going quiet for a few seconds and then you run out, technically you're still playing. So it's the one way you die where you're still playing, which I think is great. So that's why it gets S+ tier. Next up, and the first one going into D tier, is the quicksand. This gotta be the most embarrassing way to die. It's a slow death with everyone watching. It typically happens at the start of the run or on the way back with people spectating, and it is downright embarrassing. You get to talk to everyone before you go. Everyone's sitting there laughing, you get to hear your friends laughing as you're going down. It sucks. Now, obviously, this has never happened to me because I always avoid the quicksand. I've actually never died in it. You can just ask my friends, it's never actually happened. But if it was to happen, it would be embarrassing. D tier. Stop. And going into the D tier as well is the circuit bees, aka I don't know how to manage my stamina. Honestly, if you die to it, it means you don't know how to do it. Just admit it, you don't know how to do it. If you've played this game for a little bit, you know that you can grab them solo, and there's a little technique to it, and once you get down pat, you shouldn't die to it. So, if you die to it, it means it's kind of embarrassing because you haven't learned how to, or you do know how to and you've just messed it up. Either way, not a good outcome. Next up and going into C tier is lightning. At least it happens at the end of the run most of the time. You have to be pretty unlucky to get struck by lightning when you're just heading into the building, but it typically happens on Titan. And it happens when a lot of people are watching, because typically at the end of the run, not a lot of people are alive. So it's embarrassing if you don't drop your stuff and run, but for the most point, people are just going to watch you get struck, and it's kind of unlucky. So it's not like the quicksand where you've just walked into it, completely avoidable. Sometimes it does just happen, and sometimes the timing of it can feel really quick. However, it is annoying, but it's not as bad as other stuff. Coming into B tier is getting left behind. Now, you might be thinking, Will, what do you mean being left behind? Me and my friends actually treat each other really nicely, and we don't leave each other behind. Well, try playing with my friendship group. If you go to sell an item, you need to make sure you're there with everyone else, otherwise the ship someone just leaves. It's just how it goes. Now, the first few times it was funny, and now it's turned into this running joke where everyone's, tit for tat, does it to each other every single time. The only thing is, that is the saving grace, and why it's not that bad, is because the friends are literally paying money to leave you behind, especially when you're selling stuff. It can be a super funny moment as well if you're trying to run to the ship and they're taking off. And honestly, it is always a good laugh, and it's a quick respawn. You respawn instantly because the ship's left, so it's the end of the run anyway. So it's B tier because it's not that bad, but sometimes it does get frustrating because you're going to lose a little scrap and it's kind of like killing the run for no reason. But B tier. Next up, and going into C tier, is the snare flea. The snare flea is a grim way to go. It ain't fun. It's kind of embarrassing as well because you're kind of just running around with something on your head and everyone's like, oh, we don't have a shovel, too bad, see you later. If you can't find the exit as well, there's nothing you can do, you just kind of have to wait. But the good part of that is it does give you time to talk to the other players and kind of like tell them what's happened so far and where you've seen stuff and whatnot. So it's not too bad. And most of the time people fall for it. They're not checking corners as much. So it is grim, but most of the time it can be avoided. So when it does happen, it's pretty embarrassing, but people do fall for it quite often. So it's not as bad as quicksand, but it still does kind of suck. Next up is the Jester. And I'm putting the Jester in B tier. The reason why is you might be like, Will, that should be D tier. It's so scary. It sucks to die to. It's the worst. Okay, it is kind of scary when this little thing walks up to you, this jack-in-box walks up to you and starts, playing the sounds and stuff. Yes, it is kind of scary, especially when it's following you down and it's not playing the sound. You have to wait. You have to keep close to the exit. It does suck. However, everyone madly running for the exit is the funniest thing ever. And it sucks when you're the only one to die. That's when it sucks the most. But everyone knows what happens because everyone had to get out of there, which is the funniest part. Because if you're the one to die, at least it's a funny moment. Everyone else is laughing. So most of the time, if the Jester's in there, people call the run most of the time, so it's not the end of the world. Next up, and weirdly going into A tier, is the blind dogs in the ship. Very niche scenario, however, I think I should mention it. So when the blind dogs get in the ship, the run is relatively over. It's really hard to save the run at this point. Everyone at that point is usually dead, so it's typically 1 or 2 players left. The guy in the chair's gone, he died 10 minutes ago. It's the last player coming home at 10:30, trying to do the final run. Most people are spectating. So if you're that player coming home, everyone watching you knows the run over. They're all laughing, oh, this is going to be really funny. So at least you know it's a funny experience. And at that point, if you die to it, the run's pretty much over, so you quickly get on to the next moon, which is good. And it does create a funny moment. So A tier. Next up is the Giant. I've put the Giant in C tier. Why? Because it's kind of ominous. I'll be honest, hearing these big footsteps coming over to you is kind of creepy, especially when it spots you from far away and it kind of just sprints over to you. And it can feel unfair sometimes. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm behind cover and it just randomly spots you. And when it does spot you, there's not much you can really do. You're kind of screwed. So you just kind of have to make a run for it. And when it does kill you, everyone else gets away. That's the thing that sucks the most, because if it was like the mask or the Jester where it just sprints around killing everyone, that'd be better. The giant will kill other people afterwards, but it's going to take a while to kill you so everyone else gets away, which in my opinion sucks. If it killed everyone, it'd be so good, which sounds really, that sounds really bad, doesn't it? I'm literally like, oh, if it killed everyone, S+ tier. I don't mean it like that. I just mean, no, I do mean it like that. If it killed everyone, it'd be S+ tier, but instead it literally just will kill you and then get away, which sucks, because then you're the one who lost out, and then you have to watch everyone like kind of laugh when you got killed. But it is kind of funny, and it is funny when it goes for your friends as well. So C tier. Next up, and going into A tier, is the flash grenade. And you might be thinking, Will, you can't die to the flash grenade. Well, you haven't played with enough people and enough bad friends thrown at them. Typically, if this happens, you threw the first one anyway, so you probably deserve it. That's why it's A tier, because it's probably deserved. And another thing is, they're spending money to kill you, so that is pretty much an achievement, you know? Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, they're spending money to kill you, which isn't bad. It creates for a funny moment, and honestly, when the screen's gone white, who knows what happens? You just kind of, one moment you're playing, the next minute you're spectating. Like, it is what it is. It's quite a smooth transition. I think the flash grenade's funny because it kind of gives you a right to do it to them next time. And honestly, when all the flashbangs are going off, it's hilarious. So A tier. Next up is Icarus, flying close to the sun. A tier, jetpack. It is super fun. The jetpack is one of my favorite things to do in this game. Now, it depends how you die. So I've put in A tier, but that is if it explodes. If it explodes, A tier. Congratulations, you're a champion. You just wanted to go to the sun. I respect it. However, full damage, you just don't know how to operate it. That's bad. That's C tier. That's embarrassing. Because at least if it explodes, no one else can use it. So, you know, you kind of ruin the fun for everyone, which is obviously, if you haven't catched on at the moment, that's actually, that's a good thing. So, it's super fun. Prior to dying, you get really high up in the air. Everyone's watching you. You get close to the sun. It's awesome. But if you die from full damage, it's not as good. So, I've put in an A tier because I know most of my viewers probably are exploding in the air because I just feel like that's the way to go. Next up, and going in D tier, is the Ghost Girl. Once again, and I say this in every video, why? It's just plain scary. You're all alone while it's happening as well. You are experiencing it solo, and that's the scariest part about this. And that's why it's one of the worst deaths, because you can't really talk to everyone about it. You're kind of saying it after the fact. You also have to be unlucky as well, because it's going to select one player. So if you're playing with 4 players, you know, 25% chance for it to be you, which kind of sucks. But honestly, it's just plain scary, and that's why it goes in D tier. Next up, and following a similar pattern, is the Coil Head, and going in D tier as well. In my opinion, it is the worst monster in the game. Now, you might be saying, Will, Ghost Girl, worst monster, whatever. I grew up watching the Weeping Angels. I don't like this monster at all. I think it's creepy as. You hear the coil sound, it's the worst. I find it super creepy, and having them just slowly get closer and closer and closer is like impending doom. And the reason why I'll rank this higher is because if you're the one looking at it, you're deep in the building, there's 3 of you, and you decide to be the one that's going to look at the Coil Head. Your mates ditch you, now you just stand there. What do? You know, that's the worst. Not only you've been ditched, you've been nominated as a sacrifice. It's terrible. D tier, it's creepy. I don't like it. Finally, the final thing on the list, and the absolute worst thing, worse than the Ghost Girl, worse than the Coil Head. It is not only embarrassing, it's not really scary, but it's embarrassing, is missing the jump. This is embarrassing to the point where you'll stop trying to cross. If you can't do it, you just don't cross. You just, I'll find another way. It's worse if someone sees. Now, I don't know, I'll own up to it. I'll be honest. If I do miss the jump and no one saw it, oh, Will, how'd you die? Oh, I got taken by Bracken. You know, I saw Bracken for a few seconds and it got me. I'm not telling anyone I missed the jump. Honestly, it's embarrassing if you miss the jump, and a lot of people at the start do it, but me personally, I still suck at it. I don't know why. It must be like a genetic thing. I don't know. But I suck at it, and a lot of players said that you've sucked at it as well. So that's why I'm putting it at the absolute bottom, worst thing in the game to die to, D tier. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you agree with my list. Subscribe if you found it good. Let's be honest, this is the official list. I don't think you can contest it, but if you think you have a better list or you think something should move around, tell me down below, because I always love reading you guys' comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Cheers.